thank you for it. La, 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 keep on giving for your kindness. I'm in debt to you, and I never could have come this far without you. For everything you've done, you know I'm bound. I'm bound to thank you for it. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Oh, I want to thank you for so many gifts you gave me, love and tenderness. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your generosity, the love and the honesty that you gave me. I want to thank you, show my gratitude, my love and my respect for you. I want to thank you. Oh, I want to thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hello and welcome to 7 Days of Rest. And today's theme is gratitude. And the topic for Jenna's talk today is gratitude for the essence of our coexistence. Jenna, thank you for that great music. Thank you for your love and kindness. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am Tezekiah Gabriel. I'm the Executive Director of Pathways to Peace. And Pathways to Peace is just honored and delighted to be supporting and promoting Jenna's work in our world. If this is your first time here, I can tell you that this is a transmission, that if you can open your heart and mind, your life will be changed. And we're all about expanding our consciousness, right? And so that's what we're about today. So before we move into Jenna's presentation, let's take just a moment from that high frequency of that beautiful music to bring it down a little bit, to just take some deep breaths. To start breathing a little more slowly, a little bit more deeply. Allow ourselves to rest, relax into our chairs or into our feet if we're standing. Just imagine ourselves resting in that divinity of who we are, connected to Source. And let us just for a little while breathe together. The one breath. We are all connected. Let us feel the connection of that one breath. And now when you feel kind of a comfortable pattern, a relaxed pattern to the breath. I'd like you to bring your attention to the center of your chest, the seat of the heart. And just imagine that breath coming in and out from that sacred space of the heart. You can't do it wrong, so just relax into it. The one breath and the one heart. The heartbeat of the entire universe that exists right here and right now. And with every one of those breaths, just feel your heart expanding, getting bigger with that beautiful energy of gratitude. Being grateful for this time together, this sense of connectedness, that we are all one. Being in the sacred circle and being part of all that is, all that was, and all that will ever be. Let that gratitude emanating from that beautiful heart energy with love and kindness and peace and joy. Let that gratitude fill every cell in our body. And know we are loved and supported and protected beyond our wildest imagination. And now with those full hearts of gratitude, knowing that we are loved beyond our imagination, with our open heart and our open mind, we bring ourselves back into this physical space and time, bringing all of that with us. And if it helps, you can take cleansing breaths to re-enter in, or wiggle your fingers or toes as you come back to this very sacred time and space. We are so very grateful for each and every one of you here. It's beautiful to see people that have been here. Thank you for returning. It touches our hearts deeply that you came back. And thank you for those who are new. We know you will be deeply blessed through this connection today. And so without any further delay, I turn the floor over to my beloved colleague, Jenna. Jenna, it's yours.
Thank you so much, Hezekiah, for bringing us into this grateful heart. the space where we can feel of our connection to all, connection to one another, connection to this beautiful earth who is so generous to us, the bringer of all of the gifts that we receive in this life. I wanted to start us today with some music that had some energy to it after a few days of starting with music that is perhaps the more common way of coming into a gentle space. And we've done that for a couple of days. And as I was deciding what fit for the gratitude day, and I came across that Natalie Merchant song, my heart was singing, yeah, that, just thank you. And acknowledging the kindness and generosity that there is in this world, and how when we are a beneficiary of someone's kindness, of someone's generosity, how grateful we can really feel, and how grateful we can be when we have opportunity to lend kindness, to lend generosity as part of this infinite flow of giving and receiving that is this life. It will probably not come as a surprise when I say this, but of the aspects of life that I am most grateful for on a continual basis, these horses are very high on this heart's list. There is something about the awe and wonder that they open in me that makes my heart so grateful to be here present in this life, on this planet, sharing existence with them. And that awe and wonder is a portal into the heart. It's a portal to touch onto that gratitude that opens the heart, that gratitude which can transmute challenging experiences, difficulties that may not on the surface feel like a gift. When we can find some element of gratitude within the challenges and difficulties, it can change our ability to be present, our ability to stay with, our ability to return to our heart, or our ability to connect with the heart of another or a community or a being that shows up to gift us with some little mercy. And maybe, here in the winter, oftentimes for me, if I'm inside and warm, it comes in the form of a little bird who just is here, living, thriving, and reminds me that even in the cold where everything seems to be so still, sometimes oppressed by the still coldness and chill, that there is life fluttering about. So maybe just taking a moment together to reflect on what are the things, the people, places, the objects, the beings, the circumstances that open your heart into this gratitude. And sometimes nothing like that comes to mind, or there's other emotions that are on the surface that may lead to tenderness or rawness or even pain, because pain and gratitude can be two sides of the same coin. Sometimes it's just a tenderness and a longing that appears. And that longing can be that way we can turn back and say, oh, what is it that this heart knows brings ease? What is it that this heart wants as a change? So that life could maybe bring that empowering energy for things to be other than they are through how they are now, showing us contrast. Just sitting, however gratitude might appear for you, sitting in that grateful space, tuning in, perhaps by a memory of something that brings it. And then feeling the inside of the heart that is grateful. Feeling the radiance of that gratitude, perhaps that might surround you. It's palpable, just resting within that. we know somewhere within us as humans that this gratitude can lace every other emotion, every other circumstance. And sometimes it's the pure forefront that is just right with us. I'm just going to draw the attention to the heart as Hezekiah did, just sitting with this again. This gratitude, which kind of has this home in this fourth chakra center of our being, of our body. You might feel or sense into a tone or a color, a shape, a movement or impulse of the energy, perhaps touching on yesterday, maybe expansion, perhaps a warmth, a radiance. Perhaps a flow and a sense of connectedness. And perhaps that gratitude grounds us in this moment, knowing that we are here now, grateful to be. As I was preparing the sequence of this 7 days, initially, I kept coming to gratitude later in the week, and I'd look and I'd go, it's the 4th day. And I'd have to kind of repattern the flow of topics a bit. And then it hit me how perfectly this was placed in the 4th day, representing this 4th heart chakra. It's that center. We're midweek in the centering place. Can we remember to come back to the heart as the centering place when life is doing life and perhaps throwing us off center, either by something intensely wonderful, we can get very active in that, or by something that is difficult and we can feel further away from that center of grateful ease. That centered heart is something that gratitude can bring us into if we feel at a distance from it. So it can be a practice. It can be a pathway to peace. To remember, to call on the awareness that can percolate of gratitude within us. And I find it does really help to have beings, whether they are human or non-human, whether they are in our lives as kind of family members or four-legged friends, or they are free like the birds, to have beings to experience this world together, for me, is a big part of that gratitude. The heart being the centered place in the body, in the energy of the body. And as Linda Tucker drew us into, when you think about the 5-pointed star and the shape of human, the 2 arms that extend, the 2 legs that extend, our apex, our head, and then that heart being in the center of that star. It really helps us to see how this is this ground of balance within us. And it's a connecting place So in the 5-pointed star, the heart is at the center, and that helps us to understand these 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, ethers, space, spirit. In the 6-pointed star of David, the heart is at the center also. And that one helps us to connect to that sense of as above, so below, and as below, so above. In that way where the heart is that balance between these lower centers that root us to the earth and these higher centers that bring the heaven into us, that transcendence of the heavens and the immanence coming down into and infusing our lives here on earth. The heart too is at the center of that. So as we talk about horses and humans, this bridge of heaven on earth, I just wanted to give us some geometry of that, some of the feeling in to that. And again, I point out that the horses are very grounded in how their hooves run upon the earth and how they circulate earth matter of inputs and outputs. This consuming and giving, this taking and giving back, receiving and offering. And they are so connected in the heart and able to read the subtleties of their environment and be, I believe, and feel plugged in to the subtler planes of existence, the fairy realms, the fae. The way the energy of the plants dance, they know. They know. The way the minerals in their higher forms have that crystalline structure, which offers structure of shifting from this heavy carbon base to a more crystalline base that this planet and our earth bodies can be twinkling on the edge of as we are on this cusp of a quantum leap in our evolution. The horses hold resonance for that pure, subtle bone structure that comes from a subtler, more refined space. That is both earth as in this planet where we reside here, and earth more generally as the plane of matter. Matter, mother, the feminine. The one who holds the birth of all life. In partnership with this consciousness, this spirit, which sometimes is represented as masculine, the father-son relation, the sun that births the sun. So there's existence of any star before that star happens to be born in the crucible of the universe that created all of this. So we sit in these inner weavings, in these little babushka kind of nestings of life. And symbolically, the horse can bring us into that place of connecting the lower and the higher and the lower realms through this heart. As I said, I feel that this is slightly different from the lion. The lion is such a sun, soul, fire being that it's like this automatic heart. And the horse offers us this sense of bridging. Symbolically, and in how they carry their earth being lives as well. We can feel that. It's infused. And as humans, we have the gift of having this resonance of all life within our ability to be aware. I'm so grateful for the unfolding awakening of that in my own life. And hope that just witnessing and testifying that we are all that brings some element of wonder and joy to this space as we share in this. yesterday, a really good question came up about anger. So there's a woman talking about some students and boys in the classroom expressing some anger. I had to feel into myself a little bit and decide where to lead at the outset of speaking about anger, which has such a beautiful place in our week of rest. On one hand, rest comes when we set aside anger, ours, the burden of others, the burden of the anger of the world, and we come into something that is so in contrast with what anger is and feels like. Tenderness, gratitude, presence, essence, truth, clarity. These are all things that are free of those vibrations of anger. And yet that freedom can hold it too and can offer a release from the grip of that anger. And what came to me so strongly was to be able to voice, I love anger. I have love for the fire of that emotion that runs through us, that alarms us that something is off. And man, that's a journey to come to a point of being able to love anger, my own, and that I see reflected in the world, coming from maybe another person's voice or body language or words or position of power in the world. And yet, in that journey of finding capacity to truly love and be love in the world, it's absolutely essential that we can meet that with anything that faces us. And anger is a common one. It's also very commonly suppressed and repressed in our world. And so one of the reasons that I can authentically say, I love anger, I am grateful when anger shows its face, is that it is a change agent. Anger can come with it a demand for restitution, for looking, for getting that fire lit under us, within us. And so as a change agent, it has alchemical power. It can transform. And if we bring that true alchemy of, I'll say this term, I hesitate a little bit, but I'm going to speak it into the space because it's coming. Sacred rage. The purity that can come with true sacred rage. Now, we have to be very careful because there can also be a black smoke that comes with rage, a nastiness, a pollutant that can come with anger. So we have to be very, very careful. And when we are, and we can be in that clear space, we can see that there is a beauty to a sacred rage that says, no, no more. And that invites something so vastly loving and powerful to enter that space. It must always be very infused with that divine love. Otherwise, it loses its true place. But when it is there, how grateful I have been to see that in kind of warrior hero heart that comes forward to protect. To see it in courageous beings who will put their bodies in the place of a barrier to harm. The way it can motivate someone to work really diligently. Have you ever seen a mother who's angry about their child having missed out on some kind of an opportunity and they know that they can do something about it? It's like, what just happened? All of this energy is just catalyzed. Love that. how it can hold wide open a space for silence. So Tezekiah, myself, and Tammy, Tammy entered into the chat. Hello from snowy Minnesota. She's about in between where Tezekiah and I are geographically right now. So in Minnesota, we had the murder of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis. Black man who was killed by police officers. And then there were protests, there were fire, there was a lot of anger, fear, and some kind of strange things that come in where there were actually vandals that infuse into circumstances like this to generate more chaos that detracts from the clarity of a social message being able to be sent. So there was a lot going on. But one of the things that I observed, and it's changed me, is how in some of these moments of protest, people who are truly able to be there as peaceful protest and opening space for the anger of social injustice, saying enough, there was a holding of space so that upset did not have to be suppressed anymore, so that that upset can start to brew something new, brew a way of fermenting and transforming something that has been here, festering. And it was amazing to watch just the stance of certain people allowing someone to be able to be upset and maybe scream something across a line. And for that to be heard. Maybe it was met by aggression or suppression somewhere, but it rang out into our streets, literally our streets here. It was televised, so the whole world was able to start listening to this pain. And so I was so grateful for those who could use all of that energy to create a block of clear, safe space for expression to be had. We're just going to sit with that for a moment because a lot enters me when I open spaces for these kind of big social concerns that weave into our human history for thousands of years. This was a moment that ignited change. There was fire, literally burning buildings and storefronts down. One of my favorite quotes that I read in the journalism that was coming forward as these people were losing their businesses that they had, to support their livelihood for either generations or, like immediacy of these are the needs. And if we don't serve food and we don't run as a business, how do we do our life work? This is how we build our cities, our civilizations, right? And it's tough. And we're still rebuilding. There's still recalibration of the economy of that and the presence of that. But there's this one restaurant owner of a beautiful Indian restaurant called Gandhi Mahal. And I've got friends in that area, so I love to go to Gandhi Mahal. And I am blanking on his name, and I forgot to pull this up because this came across this morning. It's like, there's a beauty here. And so I thought, oh, maybe that will come up. Now it's up. And I wish I would have pulled his name, but I'm sure that we can just honor him by the name of his restaurant and calling forward our appreciation, this gratitude for his statement. So the owner of Gandhi Mahal said his restaurant was destroyed by the fire. And he said, let it burn. He invited this. So this is a man who's resourced enough. I have no idea what his economic resources are, but I know he has internal resources of spirit enough to say, yep, bring it on. These things need to change. And if my livelihood, my restaurant, it's a restaurant that is a small, privately owned restaurant where these people pour their love into the food. And it's so nourishing and enriching to those of us who partake of it because we feel that blessing of that heart in that food. So this is like such a great example of resonant nourishment in our community, and it being burned to the ground, and him saying, yeah, good. We are having conversation now. We are seeing now what we need to see. We are talking about what we need to talk about, and let us do what we need to do. Basically was his message, as he just said, yep, let it burn. Do we have the courage for that? What may we have in our life that we're grateful for? I mean, I am sure he was grateful day in and day out. I mean, you walk into the restaurant, you order food, thank you so much, enjoy. This is a man living in gratitude for his patrons and, customers to come in, and gratitude for the cooks and the staff. I mean, you could feel it. You walk in. He was so grateful that this was all intact. And he was grateful when it unraveled for a greater cause. That changed. It changed our city. By anyone who read that, knew of the restaurant, knows of this bravery, this stand of speech, and meaning it from everything that he stands for through that speech. What might we be grateful for? And we wish that we could keep in place, but that if it means that we give that as an offering for this change that the world is aching for, can we be grateful for that too? And maybe if we just sit here right now, feeling the pulse of that gratitude, feeling the preciousness of these things that make our life rich as they are, and saying, yes, I also would want to emulate something like that restaurant owner did. If life called me to that, letting go and being grateful in that too. Maybe that's enough today. Who knows what any one of us might be called to step forward and bring that gratitude forth for. I'm going to share a tie-in from my life that relates to gratitude in a circumstance where I had to see two sides of the coin, and then this will factor into the film scripting. So this is a little glimpse also today into the film work and life events that are happening on the ground that tie into the global themes that I believe can be crafted into a mythological purpose to help us find meaning. So about 2 months, not quite even. So George Floyd lost his life around Memorial Day weekend, so end of May. And 4th of July is, I can't remember if everybody here is in the US, but there might be people who have been joining us that will see this video or rejoin us, obviously, that have been through in other countries. So it's the United States Independence Day. 4th of July is a big time celebrating the freedom from our connection to England as immigrants came here and severed that colonization of England to the people there, but then people just came here and then recolonized this nation. So it's really complex. It's got a lot of layers of both celebration and also pain. Things to be grateful for and things to recognize are trampling the abundance that was the rightful connection between people and the Mother Earth here before this wave of change came. Nonetheless, the 4th of July is a big time of celebration in America about freedom. There's fireworks, there's parades, there's music, there's barbecues, family gatherings. Cities will have marathons, just all around. It's a very, very big holiday here. And fireworks are loud and explosive, and they can be something that we wonder at and we go, oh, this is so great. And they can cause destruction. So a lot of wild animals lose their lives out of the fear and disorientation that comes with these big explosive booms. A lot of war veterans have a really hard time with fireworks because it's a reminder of bombing. It sounds, the same. It's fireworks are loaded with a lot of gunpowder. It is an explosion. And horses are notoriously not really big fans of explosions. Nonetheless, many of them have been in our wars, and their ancestors have been in our wars, so it's in their memory traces, both to have some valor in the face of it and to freak out and say, this is life-threatening. So here comes the personal story part, and the preview to a thread woven into the film scripting. I went out to be with my horses on the 4th of July in 2020. And there were fireworks going off, which I had thought was possible, which is why I went there to go be with them and provide some safety and anchoring. And I was boarding them with some other people at the time. And I talked with them. There were some strange responses. And I thought, this is really weird. There's a disconnect. They're acting like there were a few fireworks and there won't be more. This was the day before I was there. There won't be more tomorrow on actually the 4th. There were just a few in the neighborhood right here where the horses live, but there won't be more. I thought, that doesn't sound truthful. But the horses are all fine. And I was looking around going, not according to my read on the situation. So we arranged that I could be there. But there was a protest by this woman. And I thought, this is interesting. She doesn't want me here. The safest thing is to have the owners of the horses here if there might be explosions. But we arranged it that I could be there. But I knew there was something kind of brewing. So I get there on the 4th of July, and they allowed their neighbor right over the horses' pastures to have about a 90-work, intense, huge firework display, which created pandemonium. I mean, a filly ran through fencing, tore down about 60, 70 feet of fence. The geldings were right under the fireworks where they were pastured. So they all had to move as far away as they could, still being right under it, along a fence line in 2 different pastures in freeze mode. They could only get away a little. They were in freeze mode. The mares and fillies were a little bit further. So they were, by most of them were in flight mode. They were running. They were running to a sweat. They were coming through fences. The geldings are frozen under this. And then as the fireworks started to stop, there was still chaos. I had brought my 2 into a round pen. I was the only owner that was there, which seemed very bizarre. So I think that the others were just told it'll be fine. Or later I pieced together, I thought, I think that they were all going to actually be there and enjoy the fireworks. And I was like oblivious to the fact that they were all thinking that this was okay. And I kind of ruined the party the night before by saying, I don't think this is good. And I think I'd like to be here with my 2 to help everybody be safe. So it took a while to kind of piece together some of the chaos. But the woman said, you need to leave. The fireworks are over, your horses are fine, put them away, and you need to leave. Well, I observed that the geldings had been in freeze mode. And oftentimes if you come out of freeze mode, you go either into fight or flight mode. The body is still processing this fear response. So I was like, those guys could try to break through the fences and then they all get loose, or they could fight each other. My horse is supposed to go back with 2 horses who are much, much bigger than him and bullies. I don't like that. That was where Phoenix was supposed to go. And Amiga was supposed to go into the mare's pasture, where I went and looked, and I saw that the fences had been torn down between the 2 pastures, and 2 of the mares were drenched with sweat. I'm like, no, this needs some time and we need to do some things for it to be safe. And that was met with non-agreement by the owners of the property, the woman and her husband who were boarding my horses, and they called the police on me for trespassing. Okay, this is actually me trespassing because I've been asked to leave and this is their property. And although I have horses here, animals don't actually have rights for safety. If I was a human worried about a human in imminent danger, I would have a right to infringe on trespass law. Animals don't have that right. So I knew I was caught in a bit of a hard spot. And so I also then called 911 and explained there were fireworks. The horses are alarmed. I'm here to try to safely care for my horses. Met the officer who arrived to the property and was definitely met by the same ways of thinking that instituted policing, which is property owners have the right above life. Oops, that doesn't fly with my values to take care of the lives of my horses first. So I learned a lot in the process, and we won't go into a lot of that today, but in other formats, it is something interesting to go through. I was threatened with arrest for trespassing, and I asked, please let me take care of these horses first and then do what you have to do. And he kind of let me take care of the horses enough. A little bit of time was given to walk them, cool them, get some bearings, get safe fencing. But I had turned them out far more prematurely than would have been preferable. My gelding did get a big chunk out of his flesh when the bullies must have encountered him after I had left. I was grabbed by the officer who thought I was taking too much time where I had been asked to leave and was unwelcome. And as he grabbed me, I'm a small woman and he was a big guy. And I think he was amped up and I think he was also confused. I think he did not understand because he didn't know anything about horses. He said, I don't know about horses, but I know about trespassing and you're about to be arrested. Like, oh, shoot, this is terrifying. And also kind of not that big of a deal because what am I going to do? I go through that. I'm going to be here for these horses because there might be bodily injury, there might be harm, there might be chaos if they get loose. So I'm going to just weather this and hope for the best and get through the moment and kind of like, okay, so what? I had watched, why am I blanking on her name? There's a Zen Buddhist woman in New Mexico who was with Jane Fonda and some others with some protests about climate change, and they were getting arrested. And this beloved Zen priest woman said, she got arrested. And she basically said, don't waste these opportunities. Like stand up, be the activist, peaceful activist when the call arises. So I thought, well, I'll try my best. And so, get through this moment. But he grabbed me, he whiplashed me, hurt my shoulder. I had limited range of motion for about a year I was working through. So it was significant. His 4 fingers and thumb bruised my arm and my breast and rib area from how he held my arm into my body as he took both sides of me. And I think he maybe even accidentally ended up grabbing my hair, whiplashing me as he pushed me forward. But that's what happened to my body. And interestingly, I get home. About 2 days later, I know I'm going to be served with this citation for trespassing, and I was. But before I got served, I'm home, and I hear this little prompting, feel the sense, go upstairs, look in a box. I'm thinking, this is so weird. And actually, I was on my way to the hospital because at that time, you had to go to the hospital to COVID test. And I had been exposed to COVID. I didn't get it, but I had to go test. So I was on my way to the hospital feeling sick. It was just something else. But so I go upstairs anyway, because I had this intuition. And I go get this box. And I open it. And there are these little figurines from my childhood, from when I was about 9-10 years old. I collected them. And over the years, I've given some away, given them to some little girls in my life, given them to maybe a woman who used to have a horse, and that figurine reminded her of her horse that she had. And some, they were broken. I mean, these had come and gone. And this little box matched. There were about maybe 12 horses in this little box. So a couple of them had to double for some horses in the field, but they matched the horses, the 15 horses that had been in that field the night. That there were these fireworks, that my horses, who are descendants of horses who fought in the United States Civil War against slavery, their ancestors were in those wars. These horses were under these explosions. We're in a nation where policing got started as a way of managing property and people out of the roots of slavery. We're still grappling with racial tensions, bias, and policing on these streets. All of this is important. I had no real idea of some of the context as I was with my horses on the 4th of July. I just knew I needed to make them safe. We were under the full moon and an eclipse at the moment that officer was grabbing me. So I felt this power. I felt the power of this Mother Earth rising up through my feet, through my legs, up into my heart, up into my arms. My willingness to hold ground was like immense. I felt the power of the soil beneath my feet resonating. I felt the root structures of the trees surrounding and beneath this ground like I never had before. It made sense when I opened that box. This is a destiny moment. Live it. Be grateful. Find the courage. Those horses. How do you explain that other than mystical? I can't. It's just a beautiful mystical moment that I had these little collections of horses. They had been with me since I was 9 or 10 years old. They sat in a box for 3 decades. I opened the box and there are these little replicas of the actual horses that had been in the field that night. Our destinies converged. They showed up. How did they each get there? So cool. My uncle and aunt lived on the next property 2 miles down from where this took place. The reason that my horses lived there was because my aunt and uncle said, we have this neighbor, bring your horses here. You can stay with us. We'll have more time together. And, this woman grew up with my cousins. It'll be great. And it was for a while. And then that night, everything changed. My uncle was very afraid that they would be upset and that we were in drought, and the fields between them, if somebody got upset because I had caused trouble, this being their family, all it would take is one spark and that whole in-between area would have lit on fire and burned down their farm. I understand his fear. It was real. It also was him removing himself from the tender man that I know that he is out of fear, which is part of a pattern. And so I strive to have compassion for that. Sometimes I lose it. And I'm like, come on. Can you stand with life on this? And he's standing with life in his own way. He wants to protect his family. And that makes perfect sense to me. His birth date is September 8th. If you look at what happened on September 8th after the 4th of July, the sculpture of General Lee mounted on a horse came down. General Lee was one of the officers defending slavery. My Phoenix and Amiga have a full or half brother named General Lee. We're going to take this stuff down with fire. And sometimes it's going to look messy. I mean, I couldn't compose a reasonable sentence to try to really convey to this officer what my real goal was and how, I'm a peace activist. I'm here to make things better out of love. I recorded it so I can listen to myself. And I was a mess. I was like, no, I am not, moving. I mean, after having asked him, please let me take care of these horses, repeating. And then you get human, you get real messy in these moments. So it gives me so much compassion where we can watch a video of someone in a moment of difficulty and we can think, what were they thinking? Who are they? What are they doing? What's their pattern? What's their history? Who are they? What were they trying to accomplish? We don't know. But when we engage in the messiness of life, we can know that probably everyone's doing their best. And we can be grateful for the lucidity that we can have in the moments and I think we can also be grateful when we're just willing to let it be the mess that it is, and then ask, what can rise up out of this? And so that's one of the storyline threads from this film series, The Phoenix Rose. Phoenix was my gelding. His name is Phoenix Rose. Summit's Phoenix Rose. He was born out of Summit stables. He holds that fiery Phoenix energy. He inspires it in me. I hope to inspire it in you. Because as grateful as we can be for the beauty of the daily things in our lives, there are structures right now in our world that are upholding injustice somewhere. What are we willing to let burn? Is there an imagination of this world that could be more beautiful, that we could feel even more gratitude for if we let changes roll through our lives? Can we be grateful to hold the hope of that kind of dream? I've taken our whole time and left only a few minutes for questions. We'll turn this over to Tezekiah to help MC as I come into interface and out of the space of transmission.
Well, we have people who have added and some comments to expand on what you provided. Tammy, who said, yes, the death of George Floyd and our response to that went viral around the globe. And Karen added the name of the Gandhi Mahai, the man who owned Gandhi Mahai, which is Ruhul Islam.
Thank you.
Yes. And there's comments about, yes, even dogs shake when they hear firecrackers. Can't imagine how it is with horses. And then Alexandra says, what a strange experience. Must a tone of gratitude that, let's see, lost it here in the chat.
Yes, I see it. A tone of gratitude was needed to transform those events.
Exactly. And then earlier, David had a message or a question, actually.
Well, and I also see Cindy, thank you, Joan Halifax. Joanne Macy was the word that was coming to me. Then I had that like interference of that name, and I could not find Joan Halifax in my name.
Yes.
Joan Halifax is the Zen priest woman who was doing the protest. And if you, I can't remember if it's Tricycle Magazine or Lion's Roar, but if you Google like Joan Halifax protests, don't waste this opportunity, or, don't waste the moment or something like that, you'll see her article on that. And it's really beautiful and very inspiring. And man, I held to that. So yes.
Yes. And David had a question about, he said, it seemed like it would take some self-awareness to be able to fully access that sacred rage that you talked about, or to respond to that in the ways that you talked about. Do you want to expand on that at all?
Yes.
It's a beautiful concept, by the way. I loved it.
It's beautiful and it is essential. I mean, that is the essence of the whole deal, is exactly what David is bringing in, that in order for it to be sacred rage, it has to be rooted in that self, that source, that creative force that ignites all of life, that holds kind, generous, benevolent reverence for all life. That rage must be completely yoked and aware. It like that. The word that's coming to me is there must be transparent awareness where that continues to be known and felt through the rage, rather than we can get rage blind, right, is a term where you're so upset that you get blind, you forget. So if you forget your true self, forget your true identity as love, then you can be blind rage, which is an entirely different thing than sacred rage. Sacred rage holds love primary and says, as the resonance of something that is not love comes forward, I can meet that with love. And sometimes that love is of the shape that matches something that is so offensive to life that it comes as something sacred to burn away that falsity.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Cindy has says, it is in these moments and events that we change the world. Thank you, Jenna, for your courage and your sharing. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Jenna.
it is. This is how we change our world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this, this gratitude that can bring us into that heart and then have the alchemical power for anything. It can transform the lead into gold. And it does that through fire. It does that through a refining force. It does that through something that will burn away what is not a true structure. And man, that can be difficult. It can be terrifying. I'll bring up another. Zen is with me today very strongly, apparently, but another Zen saying that is about gratitude through these kind of moments of fiery loss. It's one of my favorites. And it is so hard. So full of a sorrow also. And it says, knock on wood and discreate. This is the teaching. I always get a little cautious to speak these things into word, which becomes reality. But the saying is, the barn has burned down. Now I can see the moon. The barn has burned down. These things happen. The barn has been burned down. Now I can see the moon. I can see the moon. Huh? Let's let it. Let's let life bear us so bare that to see the moon is all we truly need. Even on cloudy days, to know that it is there, to be enough, to let go of everything that stands in our way of having that kind of courage. They accidentally took down a beautiful oak tree that blocked my view, and now I can see the sacred mountain, Joni says.
Yes.
Like how sad to take down an oak tree, right? Like we paying for that loss. That's a real loss. If it was a beautiful oak tree, my guess is that this was an old tree being that you probably loved. And no, sacred mountain. And just returning us to how, just as David had said, that to understand this, there needs to be some self-awareness, some ability to know oneself as infinitely connected with all life. And that these burnings, sometimes these are just things that happen, right? Like the elements converge and fire happens, or someone else was doing their job. They made a mistake, one tree or another. And sometimes there are choices that we make. So when it's a choice, we want to have our lives infused with as much wisdom as possible. And that wisdom comes in partnership with being on the pulse of life, having that sense of choice, yes, no, do, don't, based on that greater force that can twinkle an intuition for us. And then sometimes these are things that are out of our own direct control. And that's where that wild embrace of gratitude and willingness can be a real boon to us as we go through the losses and the things that, become then more available. And Emily says, it seems well worth remembering that while the barn is burning, before it has come down all the way, we may not know the moon is behind it. Oh, exactly. And we sometimes stand in the wreckage of things, and we must grieve. Yeah. And it's real. I mean, to have these losses, it is so real. And in those moments, we don't know. The debris is there, the dust is there, the smoke is there. Honoring that is, again, it's an essential part of the process. We cannot bypass it. So thank you, Emily, dear. Okay,
And
I'll
Jenna,
turn the time back to Zakiah.
thank you so very much. And as we have been doing, we're going to do a closure so that those of you who need to leave will be able to leave. And yet we'll keep the room open for those of you who may wish to share a little more, whether it's a question or a comment or a thought or a desire of the heart, you may stay. So Jenna, again, Pathways to Peace, could not be more pleased and honored to be able to help you bring your work to the world. And the Phoenix Rose Project, we haven't talked a lot about that, but I did put in the chat for anyone who feels called to support that work. I gave them information on how to do that. And at Pathways to Peace, here we go for this little closing. Thank you all from the bottom of our collective hearts. Thank you for being here. Your presence means everything to us. And at Pathways to Peace, we know that each of you are a pathway to peace. No matter where you've come from, who you are, what you've done, what you're doing, you are a pathway to peace. And holding that peace in your heart and allowing it to emanate out into all life, the entire universe, is peace building. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, Jenna, thank you. And we'll pause